The views and opinions expressed by the Loft Party Podcast panel participants and guests do not necessarily reflect those of the Good Times with Good People company, the host, or its sponsors.
It's not getting in.
Welcome everybody out there in podcast land. The Good Times with Good People company proudly presents the Loft Party Podcast, where it is always about good times, good people, and good talk. Now that you've received your invitation, the best way to let us know that you're in attendance is to download the party or become official by joining us on Facebook, subscribing on YouTube, iTunes Podcasts, or Google Play Podcasts. Good. Thanks for joining us. Grab a cocktail, light a cigar, or whatever you like to smoke. Share us with your friends, and make yourself at home. I'm your host and moderator, Rio, and let's introduce today's panel.
So welcome to the Loft Party Podcast. I'm your host, Rio. Today on episode 63, they shooting of the Loft Party Podcast, the Congressional Baseball shooting and the gun conversation in America. But before we get into important things, let's get into the important things. And first, what are we drinking? Ben, our bartender extraordinaire, couldn't stay, but before he did give me the recipe of what we're drinking today. And today we are drinking a Rose on the Boulevard. That is 1 ounce Regal whiskey, 1 ounce Carpano vermouth, 1 ounce Campari, 1 drop of rose water, chilled and served with an orange peel. So that is what we're drinking today. And, of course, the next question is, well, what are we smoking? And what we're smoking today is the La Flor Dominicana Reserva Especial. So, podcast land, this is Connecticut with character. La Flor Dominicana brought back the blend of El Jaco, the cigar that made them famous probably 2 decades ago. That blend hasn't changed. It's an Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper surrounding fillers and binders from La Flor Dominicana's farm in the Dominican Republic. This is by no means your typical Connecticut. The abundance of flavor and power are noticeable right from the beginning. And podcast land, it is good. So, today's RIP. We didn't have a lot of RIPs to report, but we did notice that actor Stephen Furst passed away at age 63. Some of you will know him as Dr. Elliot Axelrod on St. Elsewhere, but he was probably best known as Flounder from the movie Animal House. Does anybody have any Animal House memories?
I got a ton of Animal House memories. I mean, geez, Flounder was the guy with the beanie, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had to think about it for a minute. And he was just kind of a chubby kid, and everybody kind of made fun of him, but he definitely ended up fitting in the end and learned how to become a good old rotten frat boy, so he fit in with the rest of the crew. But I was just, every time you think about Animal House, you can't help but laugh.
Yeah, I just remember the toga. I was like, Animal House just sounded so. So first of all, being a young black guy from the hood, as it were, Animal House seemed like such a foreign land to me. It was like, what in the hell is these dudes doing? I was just thinking, none of this behavior would have ever flown in the neighborhood that I was from.
Now, wait a second.
But it got funnier and funnier as the years went on, and I would, subsequently see it again and again. All right, so
I was going to say, I'll never forget the Germans bombing Pearl Harbor, which was a very sad day. Which is one of the greatest lines in that movie of all time. I love that when he's giving the inspirational speech and John Belushi's trying to get him riled up. That was one of the best. The other one that I think I think deserves being noted under IP only because the news came out today and it's very sad. And I hated hearing that they actually found cocaine in Carrie Fisher's body, and it was a drug-related death, because that makes it even more sad, because you like to think that she had overcome these demons and was having this great career and doing all these awesome things now again. And so I felt bad for her and her family and everybody else who's related to it that day.
Yeah.
So that's sad.
Yeah. I'm about to say, I hadn't even heard that, so.
Yeah, they said yesterday that the autopsy had come back, the result, or toxicology had come back.
Oh, okay.
And she had had cocaine in the last 72 hours and stopped her heart. Which makes you just, there's always a finite path that you go down when you start doing that. It's like, okay. So that's a bummer.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. So, with that, we're going to take a break and let you pay your respects out there in podcast land as we pay our respects here in the podcast studios. So we'll be right back. Hey. You can search for the Loft Party Podcast on iTunes Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, and on our Good Times with Good People YouTube channel. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook, tweet us on Twitter, and if you like the content we provide, donate to us on Patreon. www.patreon.com/Loft Party Podcast. You can find all of our links below. And now back to our regularly scheduled program. Okay, so we're back, and before we get too deep, let's play a quick party game. So today's party game question is, name a movie that everybody seems to like, but you don't. And I have to thank the anonymous female for finding this question, because it was really funny to me, and oddly enough, was having a really hard time thinking of a movie that
I know you.
I think the anonymous female should tell us first what her movie is this time.
Oh,
Since
mine
she's always
is,
putting us on the spot.
Mine is Reservoir. Well, yeah, probably equally Reservoir Dogs and Platoon are probably my. I hate those movies. And a lot of people I know like them.
Wow.
Yeah.
And yes, I have seen both of them multiple times, and I still don't like them.
Okay. Yeah. I'm definitely going last because I still am having a hard time
I think
coming up with something that I really don't like, but it seems like everybody else seems to like it a lot. Well, no, you know what?
Deal with
Actually,
Reservoir Dogs.
I do have one, and I think people are gonna be like, "What?" when I do say it, but I am still going last. So.
Okay.
I at first my movie would have been Deer Hunter, but I've watched Deer Hunter again several times recently, and I have a deeper appreciation for it now. But I'd have to say Taxi Driver. I did not really enjoy Taxi Driver. Another old movie that a lot of people liked, I really did get, was Midnight Cowboy. With Robert, that was with the John Voight.
Yeah.
Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, and I don't know. Neither one of those movies jived for me. They were both New York movies, and they just didn't jive for me for some reason. I don't know why.
I don't know how popular this is universally.
Yeah.
Clearly the franchise has done well, but I've just never been able to get anything remotely related to Star Trek ever. Like, I can handle a lot of superhero stuff. I can even put up with the crappy Star Wars movies that came out recently, any of those, but it's anything related to Star Trek is an instant turn off to me.
Even the new movies?
You know, I know J.J. Abrams is great, but it's still based on the same stupid characters that I didn't like in the first place. And so I'm like, I find their characters annoying.
Yeah, it is. But I think they're having seen them, all of them. I mean, that was just a thing that my parents loved when I was growing up. We went to every Star Wars and Star Trek movie that came out.
So, I
it's
think when I was growing up, it was you like Star Wars or you like Star
yeah,
Trek.
and see,
there's
I'm
an
kind
awkward
of
battle between
yeah,
the two.
and I didn't have that because my parents liked them both equally. So it was, I mean, they watched the TV show of Star Trek. They, liked the movies. Now, when you go back and see the old ones, you're like, oh my god, I don't even know what I was thinking. And
It's like
to a
watching
certain
Flash Gordon
extent,
with Sam Jones.
yeah, it's like the
Brutal.
after I think there's very few exceptions, but any franchise, once you get past a certain number of movies, you need to stop. I mean, it gets really stupid at that point. You're just trying to come up with content.
What about Avengers? They seem to be doing well.
But that's different because it's not always the same character. I mean, it is, but it's not. They all have their own storylines. You're not watching the exact
Individually,
same.
but then the Avengers movies themselves.
So they've only had
have
2
information.
Avengers movies, and each one of them was.
And they have 2 more coming that are supposed to be tied all together.
But they're both of the Avenger movies were completely different content. They were battling different things.
That's fair.
With Star Trek, it was the same concept over and over and over again, and it was just like, okay, at some point you just have to stop.
And Ricardo Montalban.
Did you have a lightsaber, anonymous female?
I think my brother and I did actually.
It was just a flashlight with a plastic tube and colored gels.
Yeah.
It was so awesome.
I don't remember. I think the ones we had when I was growing up, they didn't collapse like they do now, where you
ours
flip it
didn't.
open.
Yeah, they just light up.
Ours
Yeah.
didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, they just light
They took like 7
Yeah.
D batteries.
But
exactly.
I even in my neighborhood and in my just in my family, it was always me and maybe one other female. So it was always, playing games that my male cousins liked, or all of the kids in the neighborhood would, it was very rare that we ever did like what you would consider girly things. So.
I listed a couple of really older movies, and since some of our podcast people are probably a little younger, I will say I'm going to go back to a more modern movie, Hunger Games.
I can
I did not get
see
Hunger
why
Games.
Hunger
Did not
Games
like
was.
Hunger Games. It just
Well, it's a
didn't do anything for me.
dystopian society. Yeah,
Yeah. I could probably see why you wouldn't have liked
Yeah.
Hunger Games as much.
I can too.
Yeah.
With my personality, I am.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go for that.
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily a generational thing, but I mean, my nephew is 13 and he didn't like them.
I didn't get it fully either. I mean, it's just some things about it I just didn't like. It's a negative humanity film too. I do have some problems sometimes. I'm kind of a positive energy person, and
Yeah.
I have a little trouble with that.
Yeah, I know.
So what's yours?
Well, the funny thing is, a couple of them I thought you would have said. One was Clockwork Orange.
Oh, well, I'm
know-
just going to go on record for saying I can't think of a single
Kubrick movie.
Yeah, the one that I could probably tolerate is Eyes Wide Shut. Pretty much everything else is like, I don't even want to ever see it again. As soon as the freaking guy's eye, I'm like, no, get it away from me. I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
It's.
And the other I thought you would have said was Friday.
Friday, I don't really necessarily care for the content of it, but it's funny.
Yeah.
Well, you know why I feel that way, so.
Yeah, it's and for me, which is actually pretty funny because I know this movie backwards and forwards. I've seen it 100 times. I know the movie backwards and forwards. I can probably quote it from start to finish. I've never liked it, and that movie is Grease.
Oh, that's perfectly fair.
I'm amazed you said that.
I will never forget.
I would have never thought you would even bring grease up.
I've never liked grease.
It was on TV one time, and I as well could probably quote it, not only from having watched it a million times, but my daughter loves it.
Yeah.
Thank God I didn't have to show you.
And it's
Just saying.
you know, it's kind of funny. My like of movies is very much along the lines of my love of music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's so, I mean, I run the gamut of things that I like, and there's a lot of movies that I even introduced Mario to that he never in a million years believed that I would have even seen those movies.
Very
So it's, you know, it takes a lot for me not to tolerate a movie, and it's generally
Yeah, like I can
whatever
tolerate
specific
it.
content it's about.
I
That
can
don't-
tolerate it,
I
but
can't.
I've never liked it.
But I'll never forget when it was on, and you were like, "There's not even a single. It's all white people," and I'm like, "No, I see a couple of non-white people right there."
I'm like, where? There were no black people at Rydell
Background
High.
cast.
I didn't say no. One of the main characters is like Hispanic or something,
I
or
said there were no black people at Rydell
no.
High.
You said it was all white people.
Because I was looking for black people and I didn't see any.
There was a brown person or two.
That's time to change that a little bit.
Yeah,
The football players.
yeah.
That was great. That was awesome.
Fast Time did change that. So.
You also have to remember when Grease came out.
77.
No, absolutely. Look, at the end of the day, that's why I say I can quote that movie, I can sing all the songs, all of that, but I never really did like Grease. I guess for the, you know.
I will say I did like the last 3 minutes of the movie.
When Olivia
Walking
Newton-John
around in
has
the leather
her-
outfit.
Yeah.
She transforms.
Yeah,
Works.
that made it more tolerable to watch.
Yeah, you got rid of the pigtails and all of a sudden you're walking around in leather. Okay.
Yeah, it made it more tolerable to watch. Oh, I remember what I forgot to do out there in podcast land. I forgot to tell you who's on the panel this week. So, we have got our returning champion, Chris O'Connor, co-owner of Liquid 9 Entertainment. And he's got several other ventures. I won't go into all of the ventures that he has, but he's got ventures, just know that.
Don't tell him about strip bar.
No, shh, we won't talk about that. We've got Big Dave Elliott. He's the owner of CFP Construction. And, of course, the anonymous female, because she doesn't want you to know her name. And with that, we're going to take a break before we get into party politics. We'll be right back. Hey out there in podcast land, we would not be doing our duty if we didn't acknowledge the sponsors of the Loft Party Podcast, the Majestic Restaurant and Jazz Club, and the Majestic's Pendergast Club. The Majestic carries on Kansas City's tradition of great food and jazz. Let them show you why they are the classic Kansas City steakhouse experience. 931 Broadway, just 3 blocks from the Kansas City Convention Center. J. Rieger and Company, a Kansas City distillery. Whether whiskey, gin, or vodka, neat or on the rocks, J. Rieger, Kansas City, sipping good since 1887. C&P Construction, Kansas City's premier wood framers, 50 years of quality framing and craftsmanship. Just email david.cnpservice@gmail.com and start building something new today. And our friend and frequent guest, Lane Boland. Thank you all for all that you do. Time to rejoin the conversation. All right, so we're back, and we're going to go right in with party politics. And what we're talking about today is the Congressional Baseball practice shooting. And in a larger conversation, kind of the impact that it has had on the country this week, on the conversation of gun control from the culture side and from the Whitehouse side, and a couple other points that we are going to try to touch on that. So, does everybody kind of remember what they were doing when you first heard that shooting happened?
There are just so many shootings that I just
Are
don't
you talking about
remember.
Yeah,
the baseball shooting?
Yeah.
We were getting ready for work.
Yeah, and I was getting ready to leave for work.
It was breaking news at 7
Actually, I
o'clock
think
in
I
the
was
morning.
in the truck driving to the office.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were getting ready for work, and it came on. Can't remember if it was local news or Good Morning America, but either way, I think it was Good Morning America, and I was just like, wait a minute, what just happened? And it's funny, during the Obama administration, he definitely, because there were so many shootings, the gun control conversation was kind of omnipresent for some time, and then with this new administration, President Trump, kind of immediately said, he was done with that conversation, and we won't be, we won't be coming after your guns, quote unquote. And, but this kind of, I definitely saw this as a tragedy, obviously, and definitely something that could have been way worse. Had there not been security for at least one of the congressmen on site. But, I'm also hoping that it's a blessing in disguise, so that from both sides of the aisle, we can start to have a real conversation, not a contentious partisan conversation about guns in this country, and
Well,
go ahead.
it goes even further than that, though, and it was what we were talking about last week, that the division in Congress, in the country. I mean, it's gotten to the point where people think it's okay to just go pick up a gun or whatever. It doesn't have to be a gun. I mean, in London, it was a knife.
Stabbings and drivings.
I mean,
and,
people have gotten to the point where they think it's okay when their life is not what they want it to be, to take it out on other people in whatever form that violence is, whether it's, beatings or guns, knives, whatever, and I don't know what happened to people being able to have dialogue, like truly nobody talks anymore.
Yeah, I remember when I was growing up, and it seemed like, from what was reported anyway, it seemed like a lot of the shootings were, always kind of inner city neighborhoods, and we always used to say, people are just afraid to take an ass whipping anymore, and
no fist.
Yeah,
We used to fight.
Yeah, we used to fight. Yeah, like you didn't like somebody.
Well, it's
somebody. Yeah, you didn't like somebody. They saw you in the street and was like, "Hey, I don't like you," and you guys would have a fight, and possibly by the end of the fight, which actually hilariously we just saw in one of Jackie's favorite movies, Quiet Man. At the end of the fight, they were drunk and best friends. Which often happens when two men test their mettle against each other. You actually gain a level of respect. But nobody wants to catch that ass whooping anymore.
It's not just men, though.
I'm just,
society in general, we've gotten to the point where, and I know I'm going to sound like I'm talking like a rehearsed media clip, but it, for lack of a better way to put it, there's, we've become too polite where you don't want to offend people. And I'm talking about just letting somebody know, I don't like what you just said to me.
Stepping over the line.
Yeah. It's not, I'm so offended by the word you used. I'm talking about just, common manners.
Yeah.
And people just not being willing to say, anything.
Yeah.
So you have all this
you're
pent
not
up
willing.
annoyance.
Yeah,
and
you're not
you-
willing to say.
passive aggressive, and then you know, and granted, I'm sure some of this is just people that aren't quite
Right
mentally
ahead.
balanced anyway, but that's not always the case. I mean, you find somebody, they go from 0 to 100, and you're like, where the hell did that come from? And all this, they just vomit everything all over you, and it's like years of pent up frustration, you know? And I don't understand why people can't have dialogue.
Well, that's a little bit of this PC stuff that's come out from, from a lot, quite frankly, a lot of our education institutions, where you're supposed to be exactly as we tell you to be, and you can't say this word, and you can't be this way, and if you offend me, I'm going to have a protest, and there's a lot of that anymore, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like it's not a good discourse to
It's
sometimes have
not.
to listen to somebody else's opinion even though you don't agree with it.
Well, but I think what you're not, you can disagree politely. You don't
Correct.
have to, but I mean, it's even deeper than that. I think about when I was in school, when I was in grade school, we had, the end of the school year, we had our track and field days.
It always,
People actually got first, second, third place for those.
yeah.
They don't do that now. Everybody gets a participation ribbon.
Boy, you're talking to me right there,
when my
girlfriend.
daughter was in soccer,
that. There's winners and losers.
We don't keep score. Well, why the hell not? There's nothing wrong with healthy competition.
That's competition which you need to learn in life.
But you have to teach it correctly, and they don't even do that anymore.
No.
Like there is such a thing as a sore loser and a sore winner.
Mm-hmm.
It just.
Yes.
But there are winners and losers,
Yeah.
and that is life.
But I think that that's actually a good point, that sore losers and sore winners, because you learn early that you might win and you might lose, and you learn early who the sore winners are and the sore losers are, and you got shit for that, because people weren't just going to let you just be a jerk because you won. They were going to give you crap for it, or they weren't going to let you just be a jerk because you lost. But you learned you might win and you might lose. This is how the world works.
So the more PC you get, the less.
Tolerant you actually become.
You don't. They don't teach how to lose and win gracefully, and those simple, just manners.
And how my thing I always learned as a young man was that you're going to fall down.
Yeah.
And when you fall down, that you have to get back up, learn from why you fell down, and go forward and get better.
Well, and if you don't,
and always strive to go forward,
and
even
if
knowing
you
you're
choose
going
not
to
to
get beat
do
up
that,
every once in a while and knocked down. And that's just part of life. And the sooner you learn, that's a very valuable life lesson.
So what are you thinking, Chris?
I'm thinking this fits exactly the misconception that Americans have and have had for a long time. And if you actually want to go by the numbers, and this is a pretty staggering statistic, I think. According to the most recent FBI data available, an estimated about 16,000 people, 15.6 murders per 100,000 people occurred in 2015. While this was the highest murder rate in 6 years, which is not good, it is less than half the historical high of 10.2 in 1980. So
70s and 80s were violent.
to say that all of a sudden this is becoming some crime culture and wow, look at modern society. But hear me out.
I am.
Before we say anything, it is stunning the amount of progress that we've made in lowering the murder rate in this country across the board. And a lot of that can be due to any number of things: better policing techniques, better technological advancements. Also, I think, if you look at New York policing in the early 90s, they would argue that they were locking up people faster for smaller crimes before they advanced to, larger crimes. So there was some of that. And I also think that there's some truth to the validity that the book Freakonomics, that when it came out, just by Stephen Levitt, and who was a Chicago economist and who looked at the numbers and said, if you really want to understand why the crime rate's so much lower right now, look at legalized abortion. You have so many far fewer people being born into poverty who would have been more likely to be the individuals committing these types of crimes just because they just aren't around. They weren't born, and he was statistically able to prove that the murder rate fell in part due to the other three things, and that's nice, but they accounted for a small statistical percentage of why the murder rate and the crime rate actually truly fell. And it is less than half of where we were 25 years ago. And I think if you want to go even further back, it's less than that. So it gets a lot more attention now because we have immediate news, and so you hear of a shooting immediately these kinds of things. I'm just arguing if you just want to look at sheer numbers.
Yeah,
and say,
but you're talking about murder specifically. I'm
well,
talking about just people
You're talking
thinking
about
it's
discourse.
okay.
You're talking about
Yeah,
discourse.
These are
talking,
different conversations. We're talking about a violent crime of in this case, a rare leftist, a Bernie Sanders fan, voter with left-wing stuff all over his apartment, and who subscribed to all these leftist blogs, which is very rare, because you would think he would be in favor of gun control and not own a gun, but going out there and shooting at people. And that's a pretty rare thing, which makes it an interesting story. But really the numbers bear out that violent crime has dropped significantly in this country, and it's hard to remember the good things when something bad happens like this.
I disagree with that, but I
but those are just
agree
the
with
numbers.
what
I didn't make up the
what you're
numbers.
saying though, is that we're talking about two different things.
Yeah, I think both points are true.
Yeah.
They're just different points.
Can I take this into as we're talking about impact on gun conversation in the culture?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a member of a gun club.
Yeah.
I'm a member of the NRA. If you look at
Really? You remember the NRA?
Right.
I wouldn't believe that, Dave.
Yeah, I know.
Hunter that you are.
But if you look at the gun laws that have been made, the gun laws are in place, and the NRA has not been against a lot of these gun laws. They just want to see them enforced. There was an article that was in the NRA that I read that showed all the different statutes in the gun laws, and that if these certain dudes, they use the examples, had done this, this, and this, and this, how long they should be in jail. But they didn't enforce the laws. Because a politician wants to go out and every time there's a tragedy, then say, oh, I passed another gun law. But you're not enforcing the existing gun laws.
So I would agree and disagree.
That's what's lowered some of the crime rate, is that if you're a felon caught with a weapon, you're going back to jail for 5 years.
I think that's partially true, but statistically that doesn't account for the vast majority of it. What I would agree with you is that passing another gun law does almost nothing. The person who shot James Brady in the 80s violated something like 37 existing gun laws already.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is an activist side. This is no different than the abortion argument or anything else. It's you cannot afford, whichever side you're on, to give even an inch of ground to the other side to come to the common sense conclusion that, hey, maybe we should let responsible people get guns.
But this
Well,
is
you know
where-
what? Actually,
that's where it's gone.
Now that ties into what you two were originally talking about, which is
Right.
Nobody wants to give an inch on either side. So
Because they're afraid if they do, they're going to turn around and take the mile.
well, so we were looking at looking at this thing on TV, and they were talking about how gun sales were at like an all-time high during the Obama administration because the talk was more gun control. So people were like, well, shit, before anything gets banned or any kind of controls,
I want to buy this gun up, and so
The
gun
gun
sales.
that they thought was going to be banned.
Yeah, so the gun sales were just spiking ridiculously during the Obama administration, and they've slumped off.
No, actually, they had, they had a
According
very
to-
high month in March.
They
Well,
did,
what they've
but
done is-
according to the comparing the time that it has slumped from that.
But
Gun sales have, but I'll tell you,
Yeah, gun sales.
It's during actually Obama's presidency when people were getting freaked out on buying guns that you started to see another increase in the rate of violent crime. And what I would say is slightly alarming is that you have states like Missouri and Kansas that don't even require you to have a concealed and carry license at all anymore. You can just go buy a gun anytime you want, carry it around anywhere you want, and the checks on it are minimal at this point, if any.
So we just heard on the news this morning, I know we have to move on, a father of 9 that was killed. He was at a birthday party for,
actually, it was his birthday party.
yeah, and somebody got into a fight and he stepped in to try to stop it and got shot and killed.
Sure.
And,
And this is why I
my
have a problem
point
making
was,
laws
you're at
based
a
on
birthday
individual
party.
cases.
Why the hell do you think you need to bring a gun to a flipping birthday party? Like, there's common sense that people just don't like. Why was that even
The
necessary?
common sense was less historically for most of the decades up until now, and there's been a precipitous drop in violent crime. And my problem with making laws is when people start to use individual cases to pass laws instead of looking at the data and saying, actually, we're doing reasonably well. We've had a massive drop in violent crime, and yes, it's ticked up over the last.
Over the weekend, there were 4 stories on the news about somebody getting shot in this general area. 4.
What I'm saying is, again, if you compare that to the historical average of murders in this country, we have come a very long way. Does that mean
Doesn't necessarily make it better, but
does that mean we've solved the problem? No, I feel horrendous for the people that were the victims of that. But what I would say is, don't forget all the things that we've done that have been exceptional.
I'm not forgetting that.
We're at half the rate of 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And the laws have actually been relaxed fairly substantially during that time. And that's not a horrible
Here's an
thing.
interesting statistic. Concealed carry people actually have a lower gun crime rate or any crime rate of police officers.
I can believe that.
They're responsible citizens. I'm a concealed carry guy.
I can believe that.
I can also
we
see too.
were tend to be, and remember, there was a concealed carry guy that did take a shot at the shooter and backed him off before the
I think it's
Capitol Police arrived.
I think it's the same with everything, though. You have good cops, bad cops.
It's hard to bang on the
responsible
concealed
gun
carry.
owners,
They're like
irresponsible gun owners.
0.02%.
You've got
Don't forget that the vast majority of crimes are committed with illegal guns. There are people who aren't buying them from the store and going to
These
the
are
shack
illegal
and
guns.
those kinds of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, I will say that I do think that I don't even think the question is like legal. I don't think it's even a gun control, like we need more laws, and I'm definitely not disputing the statistics because, I was younger in the 80s, but I remember the 80s was almost like the Wild Wild West. People were getting shot all the goddamn time.
Sure.
And so I know that it's gotten better. I think the problem is closer to what we were originally saying, is that the people don't know how to discourse anymore. I think everybody's in their silo.
When did they know?
Well, that's actually a good question.
I don't want to be a revisionist historian, but I don't know a time when they did know how to discourse fair. We had the Vice President of the United States kill Alexander Hamilton in the very
Correct.
early 1800s. They didn't know how to discourse.
My wife and I were talking about that the other night.
They knew, they just didn't care. It goes back to I want my way, and
But this is
some people will go further than others.
This
to,
isn't a
to
new
get
philosophy. This isn't something new and modern and crazy and yada yada. I'm just saying that this has been something that America's always dealt with and struggled with and had to put up with. And in fact, we've made a significant amount of progress in decreasing crime.
Now, let me pose this, because this may be another way of looking at it or framing it. Maybe we feel the tragedy in these things more because well, one, yes, I do think that at this point every citizen is a reporter because everybody has a camera.
It's ratings.
But I will say this, maybe
It's not even media, though. I mean,
You know,
media in the sense you're talking about. You see all kinds of stuff on social media.
yeah. So I'm
Still
thinking,
the same thing. That's
Yeah.
what they-
It's not the
they-
same as turning on the TV. I mean,
No, it is the same.
How many stories are picked up on
Alright.
Twitter or Facebook and then they become
and then they become news, yeah. So, but I guess what I'm saying is maybe because in other countries, like they have more like terrorist activity and stuff like that. Like it happens more often in their daily lives than it does here in America. That we feel the tragedy in it more, Whereas like this morning they were talking about another
Van drove
thing.
up.
Yeah, thing happened in London, and so.
But in London, guns are banned completely.
Well,
it
yeah,
wasn't
so
a gun. It was a.
yeah, I think it was a car, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm like, yeah. So which gets back to the original point you were making. Like people will find any weapons, if they're disgruntled with
And
their
indeed,
life
yeah.
enough to take it out on a populace. That
I would agree, but I know we're out of time, but what I would say is that there is a difference to me between, I do think they should limit assault rifles, massive weapons that can kill a lot of people in a very short period of time. Those have no place in society.
Yeah, now, which actually leads me to kind of the last question in this particular topic, which is, what is the conversation we should be having? And I think that's one of the things that we should be talking about.
Well,
I don't think that we should be banning all guns, or that it hasn't gotten better statistically over time. But I don't know why you need
An AK-47.
I don't know why you need an AR-15 or AK-47.
Or what do they call the extended clips? Or,
Yeah. I don't know
30,
why.
30 round clips.
Yeah, I don't know why you need
It's
those. Just any general
That's not a
citizen.
right to bear arms. The right to bear arms doesn't mean that you get any gun you want, regardless of the power
Exactly.
and efficacy of it.
Like I don't know why
So
a
this is
general
no
citizen
different
needs a
than
50 cal. Like I don't know why
it's
you
not
need
that different than Prohibition, when all of a sudden you had the end of World War One, and so all of a sudden there were all these machine guns that were on the streets that it was literally just gangsters and criminals buying up.
Yeah.
Which is why they
Those were
had
fully automatic weapons, not
I,
semi-automatic.
and I'm agreeing
Everything
with
is
you.
semi-automatic now.
They had a massive advantage over the police because they could blow the living crap out of them, because most cops back then had to buy their own gun.
Yeah.
And so there's
Yeah,
a weird
and there's a
point,
lot
like,
of police departments that you still have to buy your service weapon.
or
Well,
put into it and they pay for it
Yeah.
over time.
Well, there's two reasons with most of the people that I know that own guns. Most of them have an AR-15 because we can go out to the range and you can shoot them fairly quickly, and they do have a fairly large clip that you can shoot into a target. And I've shot them. I've shot a 50 caliber. You shoot a 50 caliber, I mean that's concussion.
Oh yeah,
You can't imagine what that's like.
knock you on your ass.
You shoot that off sticks. You're
Yeah.
sitting with a tripod,
Right.
and you're prone. You're laying down on the ground. You do not shoot a 50 caliber standing
up, right?
You do not do that, and it lets off a concussion that you would not believe. It literally, the dust will rise around you, So it's it's an incredible weapon to shoot. For a gun enthusiast, it's an experience. It really that's something.
There are so many things that would be an experience for me that I would love to do that are restricted by
Yeah,
law for a reason.
So
that's
purely what a gun enthusiast is out there shooting.
Well,
That's for the experience of shooting a gun.
Well, I guess like to me personally, before we move on, because we do need to move on. But to me personally, that's one of those things that you go to the range
in a controlled
in a controlled environment.
Absolutely.
And you shoot the gun there, but you have to have that. You don't have to own that gun.
Right, I was
And
saying it's
the
not
NRA promotes that. I mean, that's exactly what they're promoting. We want nothing
you're
but safe
talking
guns.
about like renting it.
Yeah, rent it for
Like
the
you
day.
don't take it, you don't bring it home with you.
Yeah.
Go
You
into a
go.
There are
licensed
people
business
that
at a
own them
range.
that you have an opportunity to shoot.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't need to own a 50 caliber. It has no use to me.
But
for
there are
what I do.
people that when all more gun control, they went out and bought 50 cals.
And 50 cals and
Yeah.
AR-15.
Well,
The fact
they
that you
buy
can
50
actually-
cal as much as they bought an AR-15
The
or
fact that
a
you can
mini
even-
Uzi or something like
The
that.
fact that you can buy those at all alarms the living hell out of me. I completely understand, and I own a gun, and you know that. So, and I got it because I traveled so much, and I want my wife to be safe, and we went through lessons, and she knows how to shoot. And I think that is a valuable thing.
Yeah.
There's never going to be a moment where she's going to, well, she would have in the past, but turned offensive and said, okay, I'm going to go out because somebody pissed me off and go shoot him. That's very different than saying, okay, I'm going to protect my house, my homestead, and my livelihood in case somebody comes in. Because I don't think getting rid of guns means you get rid of crime. It just means all that. What I would argue is that you just now are letting criminals have the upper hand on you in a fair defense of your home and life. It seems reasonable to me.
Real quick, I'm going to give one quick statistic. You realize, if you look up the statistics of how many of these shooting crimes are committed with an AK-47, it's indefinite. I mean, it's very small. Very small.
No, I think
That's
they
not
get
what
the
most of the
15
crimes
or
are committed with. They're
something.
committed with handguns.
I don't like personal examples, and you know that, but I will tell you
That's
that
a
the
fact.
guy in
Look it up.
Colorado walked
See
into
if that's
the movie
true.
theater who shot all those people.
Yeah.
That's when you absolutely do not need that weapon being personally owned by anybody. Like, I'm completely okay with you going to a gun range, renting it for a day, having target practice, do whatever you want, get your thrills doing that. But you don't get to take it home with you in case you're just a freaking nut job. You know, and that's what
Because you could be a nut job that has had no criminal history, and now you're a nut job.
And you're on Snap.
You can still carry an AR-15.
Well, what about the Jewish Center here in Kansas City?
Yeah.
That guy got off a hell of a lot of rounds.
He had a shotgun.
Yeah.
No, he had other weapons.
Yeah.
He had a
was
pistol
carrying
too, but he
was
shot
carrying
everybody
2 or
with a
3
shotgun.
guns.
Because I was there that day, remember?
Fair enough. I still think, there should be it's a powerful weapon that when emotions come into play.
The shotgun is an even more powerful weapon. You want to fear somebody ratchet that gun in your house and they're going to leave.
I don't disagree
But
with
the
you.
amount of
At the end,
ammunition
you
that
do.
you can spit off is 2 shells.
That's
versus,
the issue.
Well, you can
is
get
that-
you can get 5 in a shotgun
But-
without the club in it.
But
Okay, but how many can you get
A
in
30-round clip.
Exactly.
30,
yeah.
Five to 30.
Yeah, I even
Most of them are 7 to 8 on a handgun.
Can't think of, so I think the last thing I'm gonna say about it before we move on is I was watching something, and it was a young man, and he was saying, and it was actually during the same thing where they were talking about all the gun sales that went up, and he was saying that he's got all these different guns, including some AR-15s and all the stuff in his closet. And he said, and I have 1,000 rounds in the closet. And what struck me wasn't that he had 1,000 rounds, which I thought was excessive, but what he said was, I have 1,000 lives in my closet.
That's a disturbing person.
Yeah.
I got over 1,000 rounds in my house.
But that's what I'm saying.
How do you
Like
think that guy
it's
doesn't-
having 1,000 rounds versus the person who has 1,000 rounds and thinks, I hold 1,000 lives in my hand.
Yeah,
and
that's disturbed dude.
Yeah.
I might go to the range and shoot 200 rounds.
Yeah. With that, we'll be right back.
Hey, you having a good time? Let me introduce you to a couple of my media brothers. First, www.americathemixtape.com, a cipher on American politics, society, and culture. And where'd I get that mixtape? Of course, www.cornerbodega.us, purveyors of urban culture. Come on, let's get back to the party.
And we're back. And before we get out of here, we're going to talk about today's sugar, honey, iced tea. And of course, those are things that I or a member of the panel have found that are really cool, aka the shit. And in full disclosure, I was going to talk about the marketing campaign for 2 Chainz's new album, Pretty Girls Like Trap Music, but I think that something else that I think is even more the shit that we can talk about just happened on yesterday, and that would be Father's Day. We normally have a talk about fathers or mothers around Father's Day or Mother's Day, but what I did want to personally say about Father's Day is, one, I had a great Father's Day. And
I'm glad you had a good Father's Day.
I did. I had a good Father's Day. But I will say that fathers, it's funny. There's a lot of, every time I think about Father's Day, I always think of the Chris Rock routine where he talks about, everybody always, thanks mama, and all the songs are about mama, dear mama, I always love my mama. He said, and what's the daddy song? Papa was a Rolling Stone.
Yeah. One of my favorites. So
he said, so I don't think fathers get enough credit for the things that they do in our lives and the lessons that they teach us, whether it be a hard lesson or
one of our best podcasts we ever had.
Yeah, about to say because sometimes they're hard lessons, and but I will say that that the fact that there is a day that and to tell you the truth, not everybody really fully embraces it, but the fact that there is a day to honor those men who were either fathers or father figures to us all out there, and to celebrate them just a bit, I think is the shit. We tend to. Father's Day is always funny to me because normally the gift is a necktie that's probably ugly, or but it has definitely been as of the past few years, I've noticed that when people talk about Father's Day and the things that they did for their fathers or are going to do for their fathers, as I just kind of talk to random people and gain their perspectives, I find that people are definitely doing more and appreciating more, those men in their lives. And like I say, I personally think that's kind of the shit.
I got a shit for you.
Okay.
You had a stepfather who passed a couple years ago. And I know what you did for him at the end of his life.
Oh, yeah.
Reel that to shit.
Well, thank you, sir.
Very much so. And then I had a funny thought yesterday. I never had children, so I've never had a Father's Day. Little melancholy.
Aw.
I was a little melancholy yesterday over that. You know, just Michelle's never had a Mother's Day. I've never had a Father's Day. Now we have great nephews and nieces, and I've been very blessed that they are involved with their lives. My niece just sent me a text, and you know, it's just. And then, of course, they are having children now, and my friend DW is having children, and so, you know, I got children in my life that are kind of like grandkids to me. But, you know, that's kind of it's a melancholy thing sometimes.
And you know,
I don't feel badly that, you know, God didn't give me children. And with 45 employees, I don't need any. Because I get to deal with it. I get to deal with it every day, and maybe that was the grand plan.
maybe that was the grand plan.
And I don't argue with the fate and the grand plans and things, but you know, that's kind of an interesting thing to hit you as you get older. You know, as you get into your 60s and stuff like that, those are things that kind of come back and hit you a little bit.
Yeah. Which is actually why I said not only fathers but father figures, because I know other guys that I know that don't have kids, but they've definitely been father figures to some young person.
And I have been too.
And
I'm enriched by the people that I have been father figure to.
Exactly my point. And that is the reason that that is this week's the shit. But before we go, I can tell Chris has a thought milling around in his head.
No, I was just kind of thinking it's been a weird couple of days.
Yeah.
So I had my first Father's Day ever, which was great.
Yeah.
And I got to spend the evening with my little 4-month-old daughter, and it's the first Father's Day I ever had, and it was incredible, and loved every minute of it, and it was very meaningful and important. It was cool. And then I also thought today I had to put my dog down. Juan, who's been with me for 14 years.
Yeah.
And you're, in a strange way, fathers to all kinds of different.
Yeah.
It's like I've raised that dog
Absolutely.
forever.
Absolutely.
And while it doesn't necessarily compare to my daughter, like, you just realize the impact of stewardship in somebody's life, whatever they are, and the importance of it. So, it's been a bittersweet weekend.
Exactly. So I think with that, we have hit all the topics that we were going to hit this week on the Loft Party Podcast. And with that, I'm going to end this podcast in the way I end all podcasts, and that is with the toast that started it all for me, and that is to good times with good people.